Is Michael Scott the villain of The Office? I love the series, and a majority of my channel so far has been about The Office, and I recently wrapped on the Goodbye Michael Field Guide, and I thought that this would be a good time to deep dive into the character of Michael Scott. In one of those videos, I asked viewers to send me their thoughts on the character, and someone used the phrase, which I really wasn't familiar with at the time, but it has come to make a lot of sense. He said that Michael Scott is the reluctant villain of The Office. Now, the reluctant hero is an archetype that I'm kind of familiar with. That's the character who really doesn't want to help or get involved, but he does so, or she, I'm inclusive, does so out of circumstance or obligation. Applying that to the villain gives us a pretty decent framework to understand Michael Scott. But is Michael really a villain in this series? Barring some edgelords out there on the internet leaving comments, baiting arguments, most people would probably agree that it's easy to empathize with Michael. And that's because the character really did become the heart of the show. But it's equally fair and broadly known that Michael was intended to be the villain with little to no redemptive features, which is why he underwent a dramatic change between season 1 and season 2. But even after Michael was reimagined, we still see the manager exhibiting some villainous behavior. Off the top of my head, Michael sent a half-naked picture of his boss to the company. He ran over Meredith with his car, but then maybe even worse, he made it all about himself.
You posted a picture of my bare boobs on the bulletin board with a caption that said, gross.
He consistently puts off doing unpopular things like firing a coworker until it creates a much larger problem. He outed a gay employee and then kissed him, again making the whole thing about himself. He tried to get everyone to think he was going to kill himself, pretended to kill himself in front of a bunch of kids, spread rumors about Stanley's affair because he really didn't think he was getting in on the water cooler chat. I mean, virtually every episode of The Office features Michael Scott behaving in a way in which he is the catalyst of conflict for our characters. And that means he is, at very least, the antagonist.
I will not be able to pay for anybody's tuition. I'm so sorry.
Which means that on any other show, we would call Michael the villain. So let's take a look at the Michael Scott story to see what really sets him apart from the rest of the dastardly do-badders out there in fiction. And so what we can gather about Michael Scott's life prior to the PBS cameras rolling paints a really interesting picture for the backdrop of this character. As a young man, Michael's parents got divorced. His mother married seemingly soon thereafter. Young Mike wasn't too keen on this arrangement, something that's been shown throughout the series.
Instead, it has become like when my mom moved in with Jeff. And once again, it becomes my job to fix it.
Michael does have a brother, which he only speaks of one time throughout the series.
That was a joke that was actually my brother's.
He also has a half-sister, which he was estranged from for quite some time.
My half-sister cut me off from that side of the family. The last time I saw Luke was the opening day of Ace Ventura 2. I lost him in a forest.
Michael's childhood was full of loneliness and failures to launch. He was socially awkward and seems to have not been able to make many friends growing up. It's possible that his only friend was his mother, making this painful line quite telling as to his state of mind as a kid.
I want to be married and have 100 kids so I can have 100 friends and no one can say no to being my friend.
This social awkwardness continued through his formative years, with things like wearing suits to school, putting him outside the in crowd.
I just like to look good, okay?
After high school, Michael had planned to attend college, but lost his money in a pyramid scheme, something which seems to have had a profound impact on the character, and that's regret.
What college did you go to, Mike?
Let's go!
Michael started at Dunder Mifflin Scranton in the 90s as a salesman, a branch, by the way, headed up by Ed Truck.
Pun.
It would have been around this time that Michael would have encountered his first friend of his life, as far as we can tell, in Todd Packer, who's objectively the worst. I talked about this relationship a lot in the Todd Packer episode Field Guide, so give that one a watch if you're interested, but it is important to this video, so it's going to come up a few more times in this. Nevertheless, something about Michael's personality actually enabled him to be a really successful paper salesman, which is seen several times throughout the series. Michael claims in 2 weeks that he acquired half of the branch's clientele.
I'm the one who landed all of these clients, half of them, at least.
It's possible that Michael's strong desire to have friends made him a natural fit for this role. He was able to navigate these business relationships in ways that he couldn't navigate them in his personal life, which probably informed the way that Michael began to look at his coworkers as friends and family. As soon as the cameras get there at Dunder Mifflin to film, Michael's been manager for several years. Michael during these 6 episodes can be best described as terrible.
Some ignorant ass I take care of my kids. You always want credit for something they're supposed to do.
But it really takes a form, as it did with David Brent before him, as desperation. He's desperate to use his workplace and the camera crew as a stage, establishing his love for television, film, comedy, and improv.
Talk! Just talk! Shut up!
Being that Michael didn't have many friends growing up, he probably learned social skills from television that he watched, which is why he's constantly referencing TV and movies. But his desperation doesn't end with wanting to take center stage. He's also desperate to establish the workplace as his family. He's desperate for validation and affection from his coworkers and beyond. There's not a lot of growth for Michael as the mean boss of season 1. He's dense, he's difficult, and he's what we would describe today as toxic. This begins to change somewhat with one single event.
The Dundies! How can I explain it?
The Dundies is the first time that any of Michael's employees signal something back to him in the positive. It's a huge moment because while he shines in it, he also signals something positive back down to Dwight.
With the audio, great work.
It's possible that for the first time in his life, Michael feels like he's part of a group that someone wasn't handcuffed to with a paycheck. Despite the small taste of social acceptance, Michael's desperation to be accepted begins to hinder his behavior again and again.
Oh, I just hope that this doesn't affect our friendship.
For example, Michael quickly becomes infatuated with the temp Ryan, really rounding out that source of cringe, which is his regret. Michael's fixated on Ryan because he sees Ryan as the guy Michael wanted to be at his age. Young, handsome, has friends, successful, smart in school, and has a whole life of hope ahead of him. When Michael looks at Ryan, Michael only sees his own deficiencies. It's also early in season 2 when the quote problematic Packer character is introduced in the flesh. It's revealed throughout the series that Michael, since starting at Dunder Mifflin, has followed Packer around like he was the leader of a pack. Being one of the only people that Michael could consider a friend though, this probably skewed the lines of what appropriate behavior may or may not be in Michael's eyes. Packer will be shown throughout the series as a point of kryptonite for the character of Michael Scott, as a traveling salesman has a significant amount of influence over the regional manager. So while Michael's full of regrets, desperate to fit in, and desperate to find family in his coworkers, we get one more added on for good measure. He's desperate for real family. He buys a condo to fill with children, but there's no real prospects for that to even happen. He hooks up with his boss Jan, which marks the second time in season 2 where Michael's given validation, except she immediately recants that validation. And a major source of cringe for season 2 is that he can't let this fling go. On one part it's because of his immaturity, but also because to admit that there was no substance there would be akin to admitting that the validation he felt was invalid. So he keeps pushing it to his own detriment. Michael then hooks up with his realtor. While things are going well for a time, his desperation quickly finds him crossing lines again. He rebounds with Jan, but finds himself locked into a dysfunctional relationship, being used as Jan's self-imposed journey to the rock bottom in order to turn her life around. But Michael's impervious to all of this, and maybe because he's an idiot, but also because he's desperate for those sweet, sweet catch-up fights.
I want the catch-up fights and the tickling and the giggling.
Keep in mind that throughout this entire time, Michael's behavior in the office is creating chaos. Meanwhile, a point of contention begins to appear in Michael's life. Dunder Mifflin, which has always served as this beacon of stability in Michael's life, begins to grow faults under his feet. Michael was turned down for the corporate job, and now Ryan, the physical manifestation of Michael's life regrets, is now Michael's boss. No money, his relationship's a mess, his job is hopeless and without prospect to advance. Michael again and again makes terrible choices out of desperation and regret, leading to the defining moment in his life. the dinner party.
That is a $200 plasma screen TV that you just killed! Good luck paying me back on your $0 a year salary plus benefits, babe!
It's like Michael was lost at sea, desperately clinging onto a boat that was sinking, but that boat's also on fire. The dinner party represents Michael finally realizing that this isn't what life is supposed to be like, and that if you want to make an omelet, you have to crack a few eggs.
Fine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have egg in my Crocs.
And for the rest of season 4, Michael is just clinging on for life, until
Hi, yes, I'm Holly Flax. I was told to ask for Mr. Flenderson.
the arrival of Holly Flax represents something great for the character of Michael Scott that he's yet to exhibit throughout the entire series. And that's hope. Hope that there really was someone out there for everyone. Hope that even if it's not this woman per se, there truly is something good in this world, something worth clinging to, something worth changing your behavior for, something worth being desperate for. Even the name Hollis Flax has symbolism tied into the deeper meaning of this arc.
If we hung Holly from the ceiling, we'd have to kiss underneath of her.
It's from here that Michael's story takes some jarring turns. While establishing a great relationship with Holly, Dunder Mifflin quickly reassigns the HR rep to another branch, thus ending the relationship. Michael's erratic behavior returns, fueled by desperation and regret. Years of missteps have now given Dunder Mifflin the cause for additional oversight for the character.
I have cause. It is because I hate him.
A decision he's quickly offended and moved by.
I've put having a family on hold.
We didn't ask you
And
to
I
do
have
that.
never.
While I'm pretty sure that Michael doesn't genuinely believe that he put off having kids for this job, I'm also pretty sure that Michael believed his loyalty to Dunder Mifflin would earn him some loyalty in return. But sending Holly, his physical manifestation of hope, away was maybe too much for the character of Michael Scott to deal with. And Charles was just the minor straw that broke the camel's back. The Michael Scott Paper Company arc then represents a major leap for Michael's self-confidence. His desperation leads him to a decision that he instantly regrets. He's good at selling, but he's not good at business, and Ryan's not good at either. The business is squandering and it's broke, but true to his character's one good attribute, Michael sells the business back to Dunder Mifflin. This win seems to invigorate the character enough to have confidence about his real hope. And yet again, all the while, Michael's unstable behavior at the office place continues to cause damage along the way. But this new confidence Michael has begins to shape the character moving forward. So if season 5 is when Michael learns some confidence, season 6 represents Michael learning the ability to deal with his regrets by forcibly and consistently being faced with his past mistakes. But at each point, Michael actually changes his behavior after realizing the lines he stepped. He gets involved with Pam's mother in a fling, but realizes that they really aren't compatible. And while he breaks up with her in the most Michael Scott way possible, he does at least attempt to reconcile things with Pam.
For the record, your mom came on to me.
Also, when Saber purchases Dunder Mifflin, it gives Michael the opportunity to go back all of those years and right those wrongs to where he could return to a salesman and relive those glory days, but he instantly realizes that the grass isn't always greener. And on the same note, Michael gets involved with a married woman during this season, but after some hard-headed consideration, he ends up doing the right thing rather than the normal Michael thing. All of this owning up to the mistakes of the past presents itself in the season finale, in which a secret whistleblower disclosed a manufacturing issue with Saber printers, and Michael lays on his sword to protect Joe. Michael learning how to deal with failure and accepting faults that even he can't control isn't the only perk that he gains here, though.
Hey, you could transfer Holly back from Nashua.
Let me see what I can do.
Season 7 represents the final preparation of the Michael Scott character then, ready for send-off. His flaws are systematically dealt with in each and every episode, and I've gone through this a lot in those Season 7 field guides, so watch those if you're interested. But for the purposes of this video, we see a few of those storylines coalesce in the final season. The return of the physical manifestation of Michael's hope gives him another quick fling with desperation when he instantly tries to rectify.
And I can be mature about that.
From here on, he learns to control his behavior in spite of his desperation.
Just be patient.
Yeah. I mean, I can wait till then.
Some of Michael's regrets from the past are helped dealt with in the Wolf.com episode, in which Michael fully is able to see through the failure that Ryan is, and yet believes in the character in a way that influences Ryan to do the right thing. And speaking of influence, let's check in on Michael's relationship with the leader of the pack.
He's an ass.
Throughout that season, Michael finds the things that he was desperate for: a real family, real friends, and real success. And yet, all along the way, his behavior creates mayhem for everyone throughout. But all of that brings us back to the real question of this video. Is Michael Scott the villain of The Office? And I think we can definitively say that yes, he is a villain in The Office. Arguably, the concepts of capitalism, ignorance, bureaucracy, corporate culture, and stupidity are like the real villains in the show, and yet his motives are what separate him from being an actual villain and move him into the territory of this reluctant antagonist, which is actually what humanizes the character. How many times have I had my emotions, desires, stress, whatever, cause me to behave in ways that negatively affect other people? Like too many times to count. The cringe effect typically occurs because of empathy. And while season 1's cringe always had us sympathizing squarely with the Office staff alone, later seasons blur those lines and allow us to relate to Michael making buffoonish decisions that cause us to divert our attention away from the screen because we know that Michael could behave better. And this rich and complex character that is Michael Scott is one of my favorite aspects of the show. There's always so much to unpack in every single episode in Michael's behavior. And so while it may be easy to create a list of all the terrible things that Michael did throughout the series, he became a lovable character because at his core, Michael's behavior is very human. Sure, on the surface, he's stupid, mean, immature, and sometimes villainous. Knowing that these behaviors are coming from someone who's desperate for love and to find a place to belong makes for an empathetic experience. This character, the reluctant villain of The Office, and his complexity open the doors for the writers to continue to write Michael Scott as a villain and yet retain the comedy and the heart of a prototypical hero. And I want to thank everybody for watching. Agree or disagree, leave your thoughts in the comments. I love to hear what you have to say. Check out the Office Field Guides if you're interested in those. Give this video a like, click subscribe if you're into this kind of overthinking workplace, TV and film stuff. And as I alluded to in the beginning of the video, I really wanted to share some of the thoughts that people shared with me of what the Michael Scott arc meant to them. I had intended to use those in a much larger way in this video, but that all got descoped for lots of reasons. And one of them is it really became clear which direction I wanted to take this video. So I do thank everybody for sharing their thoughts. Let's go ahead and start rolling those. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.
It's sort of an oaky afterbirth.
What was that?
But next time you're in the shower, you should check yourself out. You know, give yourself an exam. Those things are like ticking time bags. All right? Think about it.
Webster's dictionary defines wedding as the fusing of two metals with a hot torch.
See how relaxed I am? I like this chair. Offers good support. It is ergonomically correct.
Several times a day, Michael says words that are way beyond my vocabulary.
I know where this is going.
Do you?
No.
Okay. Remember Spider Face?
No.
Tonight, the Scranton Business Park is having casino night, and we are converting our warehouse into a full-blown gambling hall. And I know it's illegal in Pennsylvania, but it's for charity. And I consider myself a great philanderer.